Welcome to another episode of Screenwriting Uncut. In this video, I want to address a question that gets asked a lot, that I've been asked a lot, that I see asked a lot, and that is, am I too old to be a screenwriter? Am I too old to start screenwriting? The short answer to that question is absolutely not. Of course you're not too old. And anyone who tells you otherwise is a screaming moron. They're an idiot. They're a fool. You should never listen to someone that tells you that you're too old. Here's the reason why. And hopefully this will become embarrassingly obvious as I explain it. If you write a screenplay and you present it to someone, you're not in the room when they read your screenplay. A story, a great story, is a great story. It doesn't matter how old the person is that wrote it. It doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter their gender. It doesn't matter where they live. None of this stuff matters. It doesn't matter at all. And if you were on my side of the table, if you read the screenplays that come in, you would come to realize that great stories are so hard to find that if someone finds one and you turn out to be an older writer, they're not going to care. They're not going to care because it is so hard to find a great story. They will embrace it, and therefore they will embrace you. You know, David Seidel won an Oscar at age 74 for The King's Speech. I mean, this is a recent thing. This is entirely possible to do. Now, I want to talk about a little bit about the sort of caveat that goes along with that. One of the reality of ageism in Hollywood is a real thing. I mean, it's perceived to be a youthful industry. It's perceived to be a young man's game. And the reality is, for studio feature films, for those tentpole blockbuster type films, generally speaking, maybe they will be more inclined to go with younger writers. But here's the reason for that. Because generally speaking, those mainstream tentpole blockbuster style films are targeting young audiences. They're targeting teens and early 20s moviegoers. And the reality is, if you're an older writer, if you're in your 60s or 70s or 80s, you're generationally separated from those younger people, and there's a little bit of a disconnect. Do you have your finger on the pulse of what's happening with teenagers or with people in their early 20s? I'm in my 40s. I don't even feel like I have my finger on that pulse. So the reality is, if you're able to tap into that, if you're able to connect with that, and you can write for that market, people aren't going to care how old you are. If you can't, which is frankly what happens more often, you're disconnected, so you're writing stuff that just doesn't resonate with that younger audience, then that's the reason that you're not going to be able to get that gig, is not because of your age, but because of your disconnect with it. So it all depends on what you're trying to write, what market you're trying to write for, and the kinds of stories that you have to tell. Now, here's what I truly believe, having dealt with thousands of writers over the years. I like older writers because older writers respect that things don't happen with the snap of a finger. Younger people, we live in an age where, especially with the digital age and all the, social media and all the sort of instant response stuff, there's shorter and shorter attention spans, which is harder and harder for the writing process. Writing is a discipline. Writing is a craft that takes a significant amount of time. Things need to percolate. You need alone time. You need to develop something and let it grow and let it gestate. It's not going to come out. You're not going to push a couple of buttons. You're not going to start writing your screenplay today and have a marketable script 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now. It's not going to happen. Ask any legitimately professional screenwriter. It doesn't happen. People want that. That's that I would love to have that. I would love to be able to just snap my fingers and have all these ideas that are in my head as these extraordinary screenplays, but it takes time. And the beauty of being an older writer is that you've lived enough. You've seen enough of the world. You've experienced the reality of the world, and it's given you a maturity, and it's given you a wisdom. It's given you a patience. It's given you a sense that things need to be nurtured and that things need to be developed. And so you tend to have a better temperament. You tend to have a better attitude going into the writing process. The other thing is you tend to have something to say. Stories are conveying meaning. Stories are about saying something through the story, through what the character is doing and why the character is doing it. There's meaning, there's theme, there's ideas that come across. And I find that older writers tend to have more complex ideas. They tend to have more compelling themes if they take the time to develop the skill to express those things. So the reality is, yes, you can absolutely do it. The further reality is, yes, it's absolutely going to take time to develop. And one of the challenges that you face when it comes to face-to-face meetings is if you're an older writer, there's an assumption that you've been doing it longer. And so there's going to be an expectation for a certain quality level in your work. So if you're writing amateurish or intermediate sort of level writing, and then you go to try to have meetings with people and they see that you're an older writer, there's that disconnect. Like, whoa, I'm dealing with a beginner. And that when producers, production companies perceive that they're dealing with a beginner, it's not so much I don't want to deal with you because of your age or because you're a little green behind the ears in this. It's that you probably don't have the skill and the capacity to be able to adapt the project to our specific needs. These are skills that take considerable time and energy to develop. So, I think a lot of people blame their inability to get their projects noticed on the fact that they're older, or younger writers do it too. People don't take me seriously because I'm too young, or because I'm too far away, or because I'm female, or because I'm whatever ethnicity, and I think there's perhaps an element of truth to some of that, but the reality is if you write an extraordinary story, it will get noticed. That is the reality. If you write an extraordinary story, you write an amazing screenplay, it will get noticed if you put it out there. So at the end of the day, don't use your age as an excuse for not taking action. Don't use your proximity to Hollywood as an excuse for not taking action. Don't use anything as an excuse for not taking action. It takes time to develop this craft. So if you're thinking about it, take action today. Start now. Develop over the next year, 2, 3 years. Take the time to develop this. Your first script may not be the blockbuster that gets sold. You may have to find a niche. Maybe you're writing things that are complex and mature and wonderful, but for a more limited audience rather than that sort of studio blockbuster, mainstream young adult sort of audience. Maybe you're writing something that is for a more mature audience. Well, you're going to have a smaller audience. It's going to be a more niche product. So you're going to have to find the producers that make those kinds of films. Your budget level might have to be a little bit smaller. There's a huge audience. The baby boomer generation is enormous. There's a huge potential market for older skewing content. And who's going to write that? The young people who haven't experienced those things and can't really connect with that in the same way that the mature, the older writers can? I don't think so. I think it's going to be the mature writers. So I think there's enormous opportunity for it. And I think anyone who tells you can't do that because you're too old or it's, you've missed your window of opportunity, doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. So do not ever listen to someone. Please, I implore you, do not ever, and this goes for anyone watching this video, no matter what age you are, do not ever listen to anyone who tells you can't do something. Because if you want it, if you are passionate about it, and if you persist, you absolutely can achieve anything. You absolutely can do this. And frankly, we need great writers who have something to say, preferably those with some maturity and wisdom, so that they have a nuance and a delicacy to what they write. I hope you found this helpful and inspiring. Join us in Fast Screenplay. We can get you there. But whatever you do, take action, follow through, and enjoy the process. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.